My name's Kerim Cole, I'm 20 years old. I'm currently doing media production at UTS. And yeah, I work at Luna Park as an entertainer. When I think of the word Muslim, I think it bounces between thinking of the mosque and like that very kind of iconic geometric architecture and the art that you associate with all that. I also think a lot about family, and having those two kind of correlate in my mind. It just reminds me of like mornings of Eids and that sort of thing. So yeah. I think when people like Pauline Hanson or other xenophobes kind of think about the word Muslim, they like to think about something very far away. They like to think about the East. They like to think of it as this big foreign, distant concept to try and separate themselves as much as they can from it. And that kind of helps build this narrative that they're under attack, or that there's something different out there that they're not used to. And then when they don't have a choice but to kind of have it so close to them at home, it makes them uncomfortable. And so I think Muslim isn't an image for them, it's a feeling, and then that's scary. When I think of Islamophobia, I think I've been pretty lucky because I don't wear anything that would necessarily symbolize their religion, or I don't pass as anything that's super Middle Eastern or Oriental. So I don't really cop it in the way that some of my Muslim sisters or, you know, other more, so I don't cop it in the same kind of sense that they would. I think in the way I kind of uniquely experience Islamophobia is, I guess as like a gay Muslim, I kind of cop it on both sides. And it's tricky because I've definitely had conversations, like there's been a lot of support in terms of my intimate friends and family that I connect with, but I've definitely been called a traitor on both ends. And so my Islamophobia is kind of layered in the sense that I feel that I've kind of put myself in this very small box and retreated from a lot of community stuff because I just don't belong. I've never been in a social setting where I've been afraid to identify as Muslim. It's definitely become a thing where there have been instances where it's uncomfortable, mainly because not that I'm ashamed or anything, but I just don't feel like having a lengthy conversation. So that particularly pops up at like work when I've been fasting and people have kind of noticed, oh, why aren't you eating? Are you healthy? What's going on? And it's just, I don't really want to get into the whole religion thing because it's a very personal thing for me. So I don't always see the point in bringing something to the table where it's either going to be contested or anything like that. Because I'm quite a confrontational and vocal person. And so if I don't want to have to bring that energy to a conversation, then I just won't bring it up. I'm not sure if people will look at me differently once they find out I'm Muslim. I think they'd definitely be confused, because there is a very stereotyped, a Muslim behaves like this, they talk like that, they look like this. And when I break all these rules with my intersectionality, they don't really understand it. And so I've never felt that people would be afraid of me. I definitely feel like people become more conscious of how they behave and how they talk. And they become a bit more sensitive to, not their biases. I don't think everybody I've encountered is prejudiced, but there have definitely been instances where people have put their foot in their mouth and I've kind of been like, oh, like, not cool. For me, Islam is obviously a religion, but I take a very personal, individual approach to religion in general. And so I have a lot of respect for the congregation and like the ummah and all that kind of like the group of everything. But I definitely interpret Islam as a way of living that doesn't center around hurting other people or bringing harm to anything. So it's a very peaceful kind of way of life. And so whilst I'm not super organized or as hard practicing as other people in terms of praying 5 times a day, I definitely always try to approach things with the perspective of how can I give and not take away? That's my Islam. I think the media does this thing where you only ever hear the stories that attract a lot of attention, and the things that attract the most attention aren't the good stories. I also think that I mean, I know in my experience, whenever there's been an attack in Australia or anything local, it's always sad, kind of funny that my mum's first comment is, please don't have a Muslim name, please don't have a Muslim name. And so whenever we watch, we just listen out for what they're calling him, because the first assumption is never that this guy is sick or that he's doing anything else other than being an extremist. And so I think the language that you use is very important, and it conveys a lot more meaning than people give it credit for. And so when you jump to a conclusion about who's doing what and why, and it's always the Muslim card that's put in the end, then you're not really contributing to an equal story. Especially if you're not going to talk about, the charity work or the great community grassroots things that are going on. I think it's important to talk about Islamophobia because we live in a very tense culture at the moment, and I think in order to break down barriers and create a safe environment for everybody, the key is communication. And I don't mean a communication between non-Muslims over there kind of talking about us from the subjective clinical sense. I mean actually talking to Muslims about why the fears are there and how it affects us as well. And so together we can kind of break down these fears and kind of have this proper conversation as what it means to be human, what it means to be Australian in all the different colours and creeds that looks like. And I think the number one reason why we need to talk about Islamophobia is safety. Because if we want to be able to live our lives healthily and without fear, we need to be able to do that without looking over our back and wondering, am I going to be attacked today? Is my family going to be safe? And what do the people around me think? I think if I had the chance to talk to somebody that was Islamophobic face to face, the first thing I would say is do your research. And I don't mean listen to what other people think. I mean actively go out to verify what it is you believe. Because if you're so passionate about hating somebody, at least have the facts correct. And if you don't want to be that way anymore, if you're curious about the truth, then buckle up and kind of go into the world and either talk to Muslims, read the Quran if you're that fascinated about what it says. I think you also just need to remember that we're all people that are trying to do our best here, and it doesn't help if you want to talk shit.